Welcome back to the county seat. We're bringing this episode to you from the Utah State Capitol in the shadows of the Supreme Court. We brought our set out for this particular roundtable, and we are taping this particular episode at the Rural Legislative Day, the first of its kind, as we covered a little bit earlier in the show. And so while we're on a rural theme, we thought that we would take our second story about renewable energy and talk to some very distinguished guests that we're pleased to have with us about renewable energy and its impact on rural Utah. And right next to me is Andrew Swap, or Andy, and he is a Milford High School teacher, and he's kind of one of those community activists that makes things happen, like wind power. Also joining us is Ted Wilson from the chair of Governor's Balanced Resources Council. Thank you for joining us again, Ted.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Jim Hewlett, who is the general manager of the Intermountain Power Agency, the big electrical distribution center, and that's a question I'm going to have for you a little bit later. And way down there at the end is Craig Broussard, and you are the CEO of Magnum, which
that is correct.
We learned a little bit about in the last segment. Utah is known for having a rainy day fund, and it's all about saving and having reserve resources, and as other states have plummeted into problems, Utah's rainy day fund has helped them. And this would be a question for you, Craig. How does that rainy day fund philosophy tie into what Magnum is doing and some of the projects you're taking on out in the desert?
Great question. In a word, perfectly. Storage and what we will bring to the energy community here in the state of Utah and in the West is storage of energy. That storage will take place through natural gas and or air, which is a whole nother story in and of itself. But as you woke up this morning and it was in the teens, you could look around the country and the headlines were we're out of natural gas in Tucson, Albuquerque, San Diego, all over the country they're running out of natural gas because it's cold. We in Utah don't want that to happen, obviously, and storage, whether it's food, water, or natural gas, or energy, makes a lot of sense for Utah.
A lot of people don't really get what compressed air is about.
Absolutely.
How is that working, and how excited are you about that technology?
Extremely excited about the technology, and very simply, we take an intermittent resource like wind power. We compress that energy through a compressor into the ground, into one of the caverns we'll develop. We release that energy, that air, spin a turbine with it, and recreate that energy, if you will, and dispatch it when you need it, as opposed to when the wind's blowing or not blowing. And so it allows you to store energy inside the ground and release it when you need it.
Technology in renewable energy has come a long way, but it's still not there yet. This is obviously one of the ways you're starting to overcome that with air storage or compressed air. What are some of the other challenges that you all see having to be faced?
Very quickly, the technology for Ks is not new. It's been used for 20 years, not only in this country, but abroad. And it's utility scale. Oftentimes we talk about technologies and they're in their infancy and they're on the test bench, if you will. These are utility scale applications that have been operating for 20 years. We know how they operate. We know how to apply them. We just haven't had the need, if you will, or the desire, quite frankly, to implement them, which we do today.
Okay.
Chad, if I may chime in on that
please,
a little
please
bit.
do.
There's a lot of technologies out there that haven't had exposure or haven't had the time on the ground to be so-called proven yet, and connections haven't been made. But the more use, the more connections will be made and the more obvious these things will become. So as we grow in renewables, they will become much more efficient and much more available.
There are two basic schools of thought out there. One side of it is a restrictive approach to forcing renewable energy along, saying, let's cut off the traditional energy that has been so affordable for us to force us to push this along. And then there's another theory that says, no, let's continue to do that, but let's create incentives to help pull this technology along through incentives. For all of you, which one works the best?
Well, I think it's a reality. We'll be relying on our coal and our liquid fuels for some time and natural gas. In fact, natural gas will have a role to play, I think, as coal becomes less available in Utah. But that transition needs to be speeded up. We need to get to the renewables quicker, and for a lot of reasons. Whether you argue for or against climate change or global warming, whatever you want to call it, it remains a terrible problem in most of our communities and in Utah, all along the Wasatch Front in terms of carbon buildup and air pollution and EPA sanctions. We've got huge problems in the Uinta Basin on that, right where we need to drill. Those are transitional elements that we have to look at, and I think I like the incentive idea. I like the idea of stimulating these things, bringing on the renewables, but we've got to be real and understand that coal and oil and gas will be part of our future. One way around dealing with that might be carbon sequestration, whereas you burn coal, you push it into the ground again, or gasification techniques, and which will allow us to clean it up quite a bit. So, because the particulates in the burning are still serious air pollution problems.
What I would like to ask you, Jim, for a minute, if you could, is the term has come up today that IPA is an energy hub and transmission. And if people sitting at home, what does that mean? So how is it that IPA is helping, and we only have a minute for this answer, and we can come back after the break and go into a little bit more, but how is it that IPA is helping these other renewable energy industries move along and get up to speed quicker?
I think mentally you can picture the hub of a wheel where it's the centermost part of activity, and then it has spokes that go out to reach the radius of that wheel. In our case, we have transmission. Our hub is our switchyard in our generating facility, and we can receive energy from wind or other renewables, natural gas generation. We can push that out on our transmission system to many markets, principally California. So it becomes an export for the state. It's a buy and sell transaction within the hub, and that's how we act as an accommodation in this case.
Okay, so your job is delivery to the customers. You made it, and we'll be back in just a minute. We'll have our closing thoughts here on the county seat. Stay with us.